You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Good evening. My name is Peter Bassman, Chairman of the Branford Inland Wetland Commission. It is July 25th. It is 7 o'clock in the evening. We have a regular meeting of the Inland Wetland Commission this evening. BCT is recording this evening. We are conducting this meeting as a Zoom meeting in accordance with Public Act 22-3. The agenda for tonight is dated July 23rd. That replaces an earlier version of July 19th. It's posted on the website. There were no changes to the agenda from the July 19th posting. Material for tonight's meeting is also on the town's website, and the access for that is listed on the agenda this evening. We think at this point, yes, we have 5 commissioners, so we have a quorum. All commissioners that are present this evening are seated. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda present.
Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Armrod present.
We have the rugged look tonight, huh, Commissioner Armrod? Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro present.
Commissioner Papatonis.
Commissioner Papatonis present.
And we have 2 staff members, Inland Wetland Director Jamie Frederick.
Present.
And Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchett.
Present.
Let's see, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening, staff?
No.
Okay. Let's see, first up is the minutes for approval of July 11th, 2024, a regular meeting minutes. Again, these were mailed out and are posted on the town's website. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Commissioner Boda. Excuse me. This is Commissioner Boda. For the IW 240602, 329 East Main Street, there was a discussion regarding the fee waiver, and I'm wondering if it would be valuable to capture that in the minutes.
I can certainly go ahead and make that edit.
Do we want to
table it for review?
Table that until the next meeting, and we can review those changes at that time? Everybody seemed to agree that's a good idea. Okay, minutes are not approved this evening. We'll get an amendment to those minutes and review that and this would be the late August meeting.
August 22nd.
August 22nd. All right, next up we have a reconvene of a public hearing. Inland Wetland 240202, 1-17. Beacon Hill Road and Beacon Hill Road, formerly known as 83 Rose Hill Road. It's an active adult residential community. This is a continuation of the public hearing from June 27th. Before proceeding, I guess I'd like to know if there's anyone on the call this evening as a member of the public. Please identify yourself at this point.
Hello, I am Adriana Pepe.
And is it your intention to speak this evening?
Yes, I just have a few questions to address.
Okay, given that, let me go through a brief comment regarding the public hearing, what it is and what it isn't. Purpose of the public hearing is a fact-finding mission to understand the application for a permit in its entirety. This is the Branford Inland Wetlands Commission. We're governed by Connecticut Statute 22A, our town regulations, which are drawn from 22A and modeled after a set of model regulations from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The commission aims to apply those regulations in a fair and uniform manner across all applications that come before us. Commissioners that are seated for this application are required to be fair and independent, not predisposed to any outcome. The commission must decide the merits of the application from the facts as they appear on the record and from their own personal observation and technical expertise. Permit decisions must be concluded within the timeframes established by the Connecticut statutes and our regulations. This is not an environmental review board. We do not deal with planning and zoning issues. It is a wetland agency, and so we'd like to hear about activities that may have a direct impact to those wetlands or watercourses. We accept applications as they are proposed and either approve them or deny them. It is not uncommon for conditions to be added to permits that are granted. The Commission has the responsibility to determine whether the application is consistent with its regulations. It's therefore important that the applicant has a full opportunity to discuss the details of the application. The Commission may ask questions during or after the application's presentation. It is subsequent to that, during a regular meeting of the commission, that we have had a practice of getting public input, but it needs to be constrained within comments made regarding wetland and watercourse issues. Again, this is not a planning and zoning board. Whether that affects your comments, Ms. Pepe, or not, I don't know, but I needed to establish that for the record. Let's see, the last time we dealt with the public hearing, I know that there was some additional information that was looking to be provided. Jamie, can you give us an update on where we're at with the additional information before we proceed?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So the additional information has not been received yet. There was a field investigation to double check the wetland extent. It's my understanding that at this point those flags have been picked up, but we have not received the revised materials yet or the written response. Well, we've received a written response comment letter to the peer review, but we have not received revised plans. It's my understanding that the applicant is granting a continuance of the time frame to the August 22nd meeting to keep the public hearing open to provide those materials and address the concerns that have been raised. So at this meeting, the peer review is not present and the applicant's professionals are not present. However, if there are comments from the public, I think that those would be helpful to hear so that the applicant can take those into consideration and provide responses if needed. So this continuing it to the August 22nd meeting would be maximizing the extensions. There would be no further extension opportunities as I understand the statutes to allow. So I do think that it's important to get any questions that are currently in place before the applicant so they potentially have a chance to respond.
Commissioner Basserman, Jamie, do I understand then that everything on this 240202 is going to have to be concluded within the context of the next meeting?
From the public hearing standpoint, the commission has 35 days to deliberate after closing the public hearing, but no new information can be received or considered by the commission after the closure of the public hearing.
Okay. Before getting public input, does any commissioner have items that they want to enter into the record so that the applicant can pull that all together for the meeting in August?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, just to provide a bit of context, the peer review did include a secondary review, so the peer review will be sent all of the materials that are received, and we'll be reviewing that and providing a comment letter. Staff will also be reviewing the materials and providing comments.
Okay.
Okay, this is Commissioner Boda. So the alternative development analysis that is, well, it's not dated June 5th, but the map that came with it was dated June 5th. So I'm assuming oh no, it says received June 5th. Anyway, so there's a lot of discussion about the buildings and why with the number of homes. But it doesn't really seem to give a discussion of wetland impacts on alternative 1 and 2, the first and the second, which is, as far as my understanding, is the point of this prudent and feasible alternative analysis, is to have a discussion of less or no impact to wetlands. And so I would very much encourage the applicant to go back, and as I mentioned when I first brought this up, they really need to do a thorough job of understanding our criteria for decision. And when we have a public hearing and there is a significant impact proposed, they need to propose prudent and feasible alternatives having to do with wetlands. And a mere showing of cost does not make it not prudent or feasible. So I just want to put that on the record right now, and be very, very clear that they need to do a better job with their analysis.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, did any of the information that you've received so far, does it increase the amount of disturbed wetlands?
So I have not received any new information since the field investigation, but it's my understanding that the amount of activity directly within a wetland is likely to increase based on, I was out in the field with the wetland scientists when they were doing the flagging, but I can't say anything for sure without having the new materials. It's going to be a lot to look at. There is a representative present for the applicant. I don't know if you want to see if they have any comments on that.
I'd love to hear that now. Yes.
Okay, this is Doug Anderson for Beacon Hill. So yes, what we were able to get the flags recreated, and they were picked up last Friday by the surveyor, which we received Friday evening. So our engineers are working on it. The wetland line has changed pretty significantly from essentially to where it's the northern wetland, denoted as flags 8, actually 8 stayed the same. So 9, 10, 11, 12 have expanded to the south in an area that used to be the existing, one of the existing chicken buildings or something, whatever was there. Plus there's some rubble of foundation remnants there. So it appears maybe at some point somebody might have went and done some test pits with some monitoring wells or something, and maybe just changed the elevation there. So over the years since this was initially flagged, I think water has continued to like overflow from that wetland, make its way over this area and into that area. So when George was out there with the CLA scientists, they both determined that the soil classification was in fact considered, regulated area. So they relocated the flags to, I think, a dimension that they felt was accurate. Surveyors went back out, like I said, Friday, picked those back up, and they do encroach into the 2-unit building on the northern curve, if you will, of the project. So Giuliano Associates has kind of re-engineered some stuff. They've working on some new an additional wetland creation and a kind of a better tie-in with that northern parcel. So predominantly that was the only material change as far as the wetland line. It doesn't really change any of our grading or road systems or anything with respect to the rest of the site. So he should have most of that information. And he has been having some dialogue with CLA. There was one additional note from one of the initial peer review comments regarding the detention basin, which we dug a test hole for them and did some perk tests. So they're going to add some under drainage into that as well. And I believe they've been having dialogue back and forth on the best way to accomplish that. So from my understanding, those are going to probably be the only two changes that we'll see on the plan is the new delineation of wetland, at the northern wetland, the southern border of the northern wetland, and some additional modifications to that detention basin based on peer review's recommendation. With respect to
as a follow-up, do we have some idea of the total disturbed square footage?
He had, you know what, I just talked to him today, so I didn't get the calculation of that, but I believe from my understanding that square footage is going to increase. However, that from George's, and I didn't talk to George, but I talked to the engineer, they felt that given the wetlands and given the type of wetlands, that it wouldn't trigger an Army Corps or the Department of Environmental Protection permitting process. But I would kind of defer that to them and let them handle, because I do not have firsthand, dialogue with them on the technicalities of that. But it does affect that. It did stretch down into that building area of the 2-unit building.
Well, that'll be a lot to review on our next meeting. Any other commissioner have questions or comments?
This is Commissioner Boda. Just a comment to Mr. Anderson. I mean, the property owner, the developer is going to do what they got to do, but I just, both of us have been doing this for a long time and have seen a situation where we're really being pushed up against the time limit, and not because we're, having discussions about it and have the opportunity to review. And I don't imagine that the developer wants to be in the position where we're looking for information and we have to close the public hearing and we cannot get it. And then we end up in a situation where we have to make a decision where we don't have the information that we need, and you have an incomplete application. And there's no harm. I mean, maybe there is in terms of timing for you guys to withdraw, do what you have to do, and then resubmit a complete application. There can be potential harm in putting us in a situation where at the end of the public hearing, we are missing information that we need and you have an incomplete application. That's my comment.
Yeah, no, we obviously are definitely aware of that scenario. And Jamie and I have talked through the timeline of the statutory extensions and so forth. And there may be a slight disagreement as to our ability to extend that. I mean, that information, like I said, we'll have this complete next week. I know the next meeting is canceled from, I think it was whatever, the 13th. So the 22nd is the next available meeting. But according to our attorney, and this was just through some text and dialogue, that he believes that there may be one more extension period that would allow us to go out 65 days from the July 25th date. So that's some dialogue Jamie and I have had initially when we had to extend our submission timeline. You had not opened the public hearing, but we had a deficiency in the notice So we pushed that out to the next meeting so we could get the proper notification, posting the sign. So and back to your point, we understand that dynamic. So if at the time of the public hearing in August, if everybody's not comfortable with having all the information, being able to process the information, we understand that, we don't want to put you in a position or ourselves in a position that's going to, have an application that's not fully vetted and discussed. So we're hopeful that the changes that are occurring to this are really focused on that 2-unit building, as well as just a modification to the engineering structure of the detention basin. So definitely understand that, and we'll respect that aspect of it and try not to get ourselves in a situation where we would, make that happen. So if we have to withdraw because we don't have the time and it is incomplete, we understand that, and kind of we'll have to make that move, kind of just to see how it goes. If everybody's comfortable with, and it's presented, the questions are answered, we're hopeful over the next couple of weeks that we'll be able to have that dialogue with the peer review and peer review soil scientists to have that information agreed to in some form or another, or be on the same page to allow that process to be a little bit easier at the public hearing. But again, if it has to get pulled because we're out of time and it's not complete, we understand that, and we'll most likely do that as well. And then, and just one other point I didn't get to finish on the peer review. On the prudent feasible alternatives, we have done additional work on one of those options there, the plan, and done some more impact analysis and so forth. So we're going to be modifying that for that, prudent feasible plan, adding narrative and more details and so forth to hopefully address the statutory and local criteria that you require for that.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. It's been mentioned before, and I think it was kind of just referenced to the possibility of the applicant meeting with the peer review to go over comment letters to make sure that responses are satisfactory. That wasn't necessarily specifically part of the RFP that was approved. However, the RFP does call out additional services, on-call services with an hourly rate. Is the commission okay with me working with the applicant on an agreement to make sure that we have the appropriate funds if needed to cover that meeting, if that's something that they choose they want to do?
Yes.
From my standpoint, yeah, we got all our eggs in one basket. So yeah, work with the applicants.
You need a motion for that.
We need a what?
I was asking Jamie if we needed a motion for that.
It couldn't hurt, just to be sure.
I make a motion that staff work with the applicant and the peer review team to make sure that as much information has been shared prior to the August meeting, so that we can hopefully have a successful outcome at the August meeting, and that to the extent that the funds necessary to do that are included in the initial contract, which stated an hourly rate, that staff is authorized to make that happen.
I will second that very, very wordy motion.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Anybody take a vote? Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Omrod.
Commissioner Armrod, I'm recused from this application. I can restate why, but I think it was in June that I stated that I will be recusing myself.
I had a memory lapse on that one. I'm sorry about that. Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis.
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right, we still have 4, right? Yeah, we got 4. Okay. Now, I guess we can entertain public comment. Again, if you have comments about the wetlands or watercourse impact of this application, we'd love to hear your comments.
Hi, I apologize if it's not appropriate. I believe it is though. So I understand in the last meeting, natural wetlands were going to be disturbed and new wetlands were going to be created. So I just don't know if this will have impacts on flooding issues to the existing homes that are going to be downhill from the new development.
Would you just state your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry, Adriana Pepe.
This Commissioner, Ms. Pepe, are you downstream from the proposed development?
Yes.
Uh, in some respect, I guess, since we don't have the complete plans in front of us, it's probably difficult to say with any certainty whether that condition exists or not, unless the applicant has an opportunity to address that this evening.
This is Doug Anderson again. I think a lot of the engineering analysis was presented at the last meeting, water flows and things of that nature. But obviously, we will reiterate that again at the next meeting. That I believe all the design work, creates quote unquote less downhill flow given the water quality detention basins and storage capacities of the system that are designed for the project. So, but at our next meeting, at the next public hearing, we can obviously answer that question in more detail for Mrs. Pepe.
Thank you.
I think that concludes public comment, and I guess at this point we're going to move the public hearing discussion to, was it August 22nd, Jamie?
Yes.
Okay.
Just confirming that the applicant is consenting to that extension to August 22nd.
Yes, we are. And that just to my extent, that's 65 days from today, basically, is the statutory requirement or ability of extension, depending when that starts, right?
It's Commissioner Baskin, but it wouldn't be 65 days from today.
It's 65 days cumulative over the time to open the public hearing, the time to hold the public hearing, and then the time for deliberations. And there was time used before opening the public hearing. And I've got this application for regulated activity timeline handout from DEEP, and it says the applicant can consent to one or more extensions of any of the times noted above, provided the cumulative extension does not exceed 65 days. But like I mentioned earlier on the phone, if you have something else that we can reference, we can take a look at it.
Yep.
Okay, next up on the agenda, we have some applications for review. Thank you. First of those is Inland Wetland 240501, 11201 West Main Street. The construction of a 850 square foot drive-through oil change facility, including parking and storm damage system. I think we had some additional work that was done and I believe has been presented. Jamie, am I right on that?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I am kind of drawing a brain fart on what has and hasn't been presented on this one. But yes, we do have some revised materials. Some test pits were completed, revised drainage, and then a couple minor revisions to the erosion control plans were made recently in response to staff comments. So I think I will hand it over to the applicant to give their presentation, and I'll just identify that a decision does need to be made on this application, or the commission has to request consent to a continuance.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, so good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Hool, civil engineer with BL Companies. I am out of our Hartford office, 100 Constitution Plaza in Hartford, Connecticut. I am here to represent the applicant, Faulkner Island Development, for this project. You may recall, I believe it was back in mid-June that we had our initial presentation on the project. As Jamie mentioned, the address is 1201 West Main. The project in discussion is a drive-through oil change facility. So at this time, I will share my screen. I'll give a slightly quicker presentation than last time, since we did have a presentation, but it was, over a month ago at this time. So I have the survey plan up on the screen now. As you can see, so this address, as I mentioned, 1201, it's a small parcel, little less than half an acre in size. It's located immediately at the intersection of Route 1 and Route 146, West Main and Main Street. The property, which it's plan right, but that would be to the west of us, is the Aldi's and Chase Bank. I'm going to jump to this is actually our coastal area management plan, but I believe this provides a good overview of why we are here. So you can see kind of the Aldi's here, the area I'm kind of circling now. The Chase Bank is a smaller facility here. The dark line work in the middle is our property and the proposed development. And there are some wetlands that are off-site on that Aldi's and Chase Bank site. What we are showing highlighted in yellow is the original wetland line, the wetland delineation from the initial development of Aldi's and Chase Bank. This line has obviously been impacted a little bit through the development. However, the general outer line, especially closest to 1201, has not substantially changed. The orange line here, that is the regulatory area, the jurisdictional area for the wetland review. And as you can see, it does clip the back roughly quarter of the site. Just a quick note on the wetland itself. There was pretty extensive discussion and review of that wetland during the Aldi's and Chase Bank development a few years ago. But just some history. This area was a gravel quarry, and the wetland was man-made through the historical operations of the material harvest here. Essentially what it is the gravel and topsoil was all removed and exposed bare bedrock back where this wetland is. There is substantially no major wetland value. There's no wetland soils here. Essentially what happens is all the water pools in this area and sits on top of the exposed bedrock, and it just sits there until it either evaporates or slowly works its way through the cracks in the bedrock. So pretty minimal value from a functions of value standpoint. However, it is a regulatory wetland.
Mr. Hooley, this is Commissioner Bowden. So does the DEP have somewhere where they say some wetlands are valuable and some are not, and therefore we have more protection over certain wetlands? Is that in their guidance?
It is my general understanding that no, they don't necessarily have clear-cut guidance over what is a valuable wetland and what isn't. There is a professional opinion that kind of goes into what is valuable and what isn't. However, from a regulatory standpoint, whether it's deemed valuable or not, if it meets the criteria of either a wetland or a watercourse, it's regulated either way, whether it's high value, low value, or somewhere in between.
Right. So we don't really need to focus on the thought of if it's valuable or not, because all wetlands are protected, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
I just wanted to share the history of, this, how it was more man-made.
But those are still valuable as we still have at least some storage function happening.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So moving forward now, after kind of going over the existing conditions, this is our proposed site layout plan. So as you can see, the oil change facility is kind of centrally located on the site. We have our access coming in off of West Main outside of the regulatory area. The just general overview of the use, the customers will come in, enter through the left side of the site, circulate to the back, and enter the building in the back into one of three repair bays. All oil change activities take place inside the facility. The customer will actually stay in their car the entire time. Upon completion of the service, they will drive out the front of the building and exit the facility towards West Main again. Customers do not actually get out of their vehicle here. It is a complete drive-through service. There are 10 parking spaces proposed here, 6 of them in the rear. Those do fall within the regulatory area as well as the dumpster pad. And then there's 4 spaces out front. The spaces are primarily for employees. However, it is also a zoning requirement. We do have significant grading on this site. As you can see in kind of these areas coming around this side, we have a series of retaining walls. We did revise this since the last submission. These retaining walls are now a terraced effect. Each wall maxes out at about 4 feet in height in this terraced section on the left side of the site. However, the overall grading, the overall cut fill really has not changed. The finished floor elevation still is the same as the initial submission. So it's really the main driver for the grading revision is this left side, and it was to accommodate a change to a 2-way drive aisle on the left side of the building rather than a single lane, which was a result of both operational questions and the planning and zoning related questions. So I'm going to jump now to actually the grading and drainage plan. So I still have the regulatory area highlighted in orange here. Everything planned north is within the regulatory area. What I really want to highlight here is our stormwater management system. At our initial meeting, it was discussed the request for infiltration testing and potential improvements to the drainage system to account for infiltration. As Jamie mentioned, we have completed that investigation work. We performed a series of test pits through both the rear infiltration system located here in this yellow rectangle and the front infiltration system also in the front rectangle. The test pits were dug to at least 3 feet below the floor of the system, and infiltration tests were performed to at least the floor of the system. And we did confirm that we have the necessary separation to groundwater and bedrock to have infiltration, and that the field tested infiltration rates are sufficient enough to support infiltration. We did submit that information in this revised submission. The lowest infiltration rate that we measured in the field was a little over 2 inches per hour. So part of this redesign was to take into account stormwater infiltration. Generally, the stormwater system is the same intent, very minor modifications to the system, but we do have those infiltration results now to verify that the system as designed in this revision does meet the 2023 Connecticut stormwater guidelines for the water quality volume. And we do retain that on site, infiltrate that on site. We do also have our calculations in the revised report to demonstrate that we meet the required TSS removal as well as nutrient removal through the infiltration practice. Overall, the site is a net reduction in stormwater flow to all design points. We really have 2. There is one that flows towards the plan north, towards the wetlands. It's a very small drainage area. It's a net reduction of greater than 50%, but the tributary runoff to that is very minimal. It's well less than 1 CFS under existing conditions. And then our main design point for the site is actually out into the DOT system out in 146 and Route 1. We reduced the peak discharge rates out to that system between 30 and 45% in terms of peak rate, and there is also a net volume reduction as well. So one other item, Jamie had mentioned that there were a couple of minor staff comments regarding erosion control. This is a recent revision that I believe the commission may not have seen in its entirety yet. However, we added at the request of staff a silt fence line along the rear of the property. I'm highlighting the approximate extents in yellow here. The intent of this was to protect the rear wetlands in the initial cut stage. There's a portion of that there may be some runoff towards the wetland if it were unprotected. So we did add that at the request of staff. And the other major change on this plan was clarifying and updating the limits of erosion control blankets to be on all slopes 3-to-1, or we don't have any slopes steeper than 3-to-1, but the limits were clarified to be all 3-to-1 slopes. And then finally, I would like to just quickly close with landscaping. We do have a pretty robust landscaping plan, as you can see here. Again, the regulatory area is highlighted in yellow. Between the zoning regulations for just general plantings and screening, it is the site is very heavily planted. There is a perimeter screen along all three, the plan left, plan north, and plan right sides. Yeah, there's a mix of native species for the screening, and then there's a good number of shrubs and perennials kind of more towards the central portion of the site, as well as a couple of shade trees. All of the species selected are focused on native species. So I think with that, I would be willing to entertain any questions.
No, this is Commissioner Ormrod. I'm looking at the revised stormwater report. Can you show me on the site plan the location of these test pits or the infiltration testing?
Yes. So I'll highlight them a little bit, but we have an infiltration test here, infiltration test number 1, and the test pit. We separate them a little bit because in order to do the test pit, we have to dig down, the over excavate, I'll say, to get below the floor of the system by at least 3 feet to verify we have the separation to bedrock and groundwater. So we do them just far enough apart that we dig the test pit first, make sure that we have the separation. Once we confirm that, then we go just next to it, dig down to just below the system and perform the infiltration test there. But both fell within the proposed infiltration system. And then on the larger system, we have 2 test pits located on the plan left side, and then the infiltration test also fell within the system here, kind of more towards the central portion of the system.
Thank you.
Any other, this is Commissioner Batchman, any other questions from the commission? There is a staff report on this item. Jamie, can you share the staff report?
All right, is everyone seeing it?
Yes, thanks.
So I think we've gone over most of this. Went over the wetland to the rear. Another point that we discussed at one of the previous meetings is that the stormwater management ties into the state drainage system, which discharges to Mill Creek. Erosion controls, we went over for the most part. The changes that I question here were made in that latest revision that we were just looking at. Essentially, the rear portion of the site, once it's graded, will drain forward into the developed portion of the site, but there's a hill where once it's cleared before the grading is done, there's a portion that could drain towards the wetland, which is why I'd asked for that silt fence to be added. Because things don't always get moving right away after clearing. Stormwater, they used the new guidance materials. Gone over that. Landscaping plan is provided and includes a lot of native species, including in the upland review area. Project requires planning and zoning approval. They have already submitted to planning and zoning, and comments have been received from the town engineer June 18th and more recently, I don't remember which date, and obviously I didn't add it to the staff report. I think it was the same day the staff report was written. So again, a decision has to be made this evening or request a continuance. Would you like me to run through the possible conditions drafted up?
Why not? Why not?
Okay. So we've got the pre-construction meeting prior to clearing, where everything's marked out by surveyor, initial erosion control inspection prior to land disturbance, and final inspection. Number two, I think, has been addressed by the revised erosion control plan that was submitted. So I would probably suggest changing that to an original copy of the revised erosion control plan shall be submitted prior to start of site work. 3 limits of disturbance shall remain clearly marked on site throughout the construction process to help ensure no activity occurs beyond the approved limits of disturbance. And a licensed surveyor shall identify in the field layout of site components, including but not limited to clearing limits, erosion control, stormwater system components, buildings, access drives, and parking areas, and cuts and fills for site grading. After completion, an as-built shall be submitted, and that a qualified PE land surveyor shall certify that all grading and stormwater system on site is consistent with the approval. And then the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits.
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, did I understand on 2 that instead of revised plan, the comment was to change that original completion plans?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear everything you said, but so they were
Just
revised.
give me the revision that you had on item 2.
So item 2, the revised erosion control plan has been submitted, so I would just change it to require that an original signed, sealed, whatever, paper copy of the revised plan be submitted for our file prior to start of site work.
Commissioner Bassman, any other possible conditions that the commission should consider?
I'll just identify that erosion control plan was, the revision date on that was July 24th.
Any commissioner want to make a motion concerning 240501? Is Commissioner Bassman, I make a motion that 240501 be approved with the conditions listed on the staff report dated July 23rd, 2024. Possible conditions for consideration 1, 3, and 4 as stated, with a change on condition 2 that original printed plans be submitted prior to the start of work for the erosion controls, and that all standard conditions and general provisions issued as part of that July 23rd staff report be included as well.
This is Commissioner Finaro. I would second that.
Any further discussion? Okay. Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Armrod, aye.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis.
Aye.
Is that a soft aye?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
There we go. All right, that's approved. I can't wait to use it.
Thank you.
Next up, Inland Wetland 240602, 329, 325 East Main Street, the PDD mixed use commercial and residential proposal. Jamie, can you give us an update?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. There were a couple minor questions, I think, regarding the drainage at the last meeting, and then also there is a bit of concern regarding the amount of time available to review the plans that had been submitted. So those plans have been reviewed by myself and by the town engineer. Some supplemental information regarding the ability of the existing units to remain to treat stormwater to today's standards has been submitted. And I'll let the applicant maybe run through that for you guys, which the town engineer was able to look at, and from his viewpoint has satisfied his questions regarding that. So, yeah.
Commissioner Bassman, I guess attorney Nuff.
Yeah.
How do you want to proceed?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. John Nuff, 135 Broad Street. On behalf of the applicant, Schmitz, Jamie gave you a pretty succinct summary, provided updated plans in response to the initial staff report. Nothing really substantive. As she indicated, hopefully the town engineer has agreed with John Schmidt's assessment with regard to the stormwater treatment facility. Just only one other comment that Jamie had in her updated staff. Oh, that is that documentation that the units meet the 80% removal prior to the. We do appreciate her comment regarding the fee reduction. Could take that up this evening. That would be extremely helpful. But other than that, I think it's resolved, or everything's been resolved. And if I miss anything, John Schmitz is here and he can. And anything that I missed that I failed to cover.
Fair enough. This is Commissioner Boda. Can you were breaking up a little bit there. Could you repeat what you said about the 80% removal, Jamie's comment? What did you say?
And I apologize. I'm getting the notice that my internet is wobbly. So I don't like to do this. I'm going to turn off my video just so I can. I think that usually helps sometimes. So my apologies. So what Jamie and John Hofferly is a demonstration that the existing stormwater or the units that John Schmitz described at the last meeting removal standard, and John has provided that documentation. And John Hofferly, the town engineer, has agreed that John Schmitz has submitted is sufficient to demonstrate that 80% removal standard.
Mr. Bassman, I guess, Mr. Schmitz, we say that we meet the 80%. Is there actually a number that was calculated to be able to verify that we meet the 80%? Or once you're above 80, you don't care?
Right. Yeah. So John Schmitz, for the record, civil engineer with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway. So what we did was we went back. BL was the original engineer when the cinema was constructed. So we went back to the original plans that were submitted and built. We provided copies of those plans to staff showing that the 3 units that were installed are Vortec Model 4000 units. And we provided the documentation showing that those units are rated to provide 80% total suspended solids up to a peak flow rate of 6 CFS. And then the stormwater report that was submitted shows that a water quality treatment is required. So if you recall, one of the 3 water quality units is going to be replaced with a new unit. 2 of the others are being retained. And so we looked at those and determined that the required water quality treatment today is somewhere in the area of 1.5 to 2.5 CFS. And these units can treat up to 6 CFS and provide the 80% total suspended solid removal that's required. So they're actually a little bit oversized. And so
just to be clear, and I'm a little confused, Commissioner Bassman, is the new unit capable of the 6 figure, or are all of the units capable?
Just the 2 Model
new
4000 units that remain are capable of 6 CFS. The new unit is less than that. We only have to meet the treatment up to the required flow rate. And so, like I said, the flow rate has come down because obviously we're adding green space. So the 2 units that remain are basically a little bit oversized.
Is Commissioner Bassman, is the new unit larger in capacity size?
No, it's not.
It is not.
I think it might be helpful to just remind everyone why it's being removed.
Sure. So the due to the location of one of the buildings, actually, you mind if I share screen just so I can point out where this is? Let's see here. Okay. Share screen. Okay, so actually, this is a plan of the original plan that was provided for the theater. And the northerly system here is the one that's going to be removed and replaced. And let me just show you. So that would be this unit up here. And what we've done is the unit is right in this location. So because of the location of this new building 4 and the constructability of it, obviously excavating foundations and footings, we felt that it was going to be problematic to try to retain that unit, as well as the fact that the existing pipe today does something like this. So that pipe has to be removed because obviously we can't put a pipe under the building. So we're relocating that pipe around the building in this fashion along here. So it made sense to replace that unit completely, and that's what we intend to do with a brand new unit.
This is Commissioner Bassman. So Jamie, at this point, staff has all of its comments answered and town engineer has been satisfied. Is that a quick summary?
I believe so. I will just reiterate, as Attorney Nuff pointed out, there is a fee reduction request on the table that should be addressed prior to making a decision on the application.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I thought those were two separate items in terms of a vote. Are you saying we can do that in one vote?
No, they should be prior to making it that separate. the decision, fee reduction should be considered prior to making any decision regarding the whether or not to grant the permit.
This is
Okay, but-
Commissioner Broda. Unless anybody has any objections, that I will make the motion that we reduce the fee to $900. Well, was it $960 or the when you
including
say
the
that
D.
seven to 900, that already has the 60 in it?
Yes.
Does that bother anybody? Anybody feel differently? Okay. I will make a motion that for inland wetland 240602 329 AKA 325 East Main Street, that based on the history that property already submitted a large fee for this site, and then go back for some changes, that instead of the full fee, we reduce the fee to $900.
Inland
second
Wetland
that.
Associate Katie Blanchett. I'm sorry, Boda, I didn't hear any of that.
None, not anything. All right. So this is for inland wetland 240602 329 AKA 325 East Main Street. I make a motion that we reduce the fee to $900 based on that this applicant has previously submitted a regular application fee, and they are back for some revisions, and we don't need to charge them twice for the same property.
Thank you.
Commissioner Basserman, I'd second that. Any further discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Commissioner Papatonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Fanaro,
Commissioner Fenaro, aye.
Commissioner Armrod,
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right, there is also a staff report prepared for this application. We need to deal with that next. Amy, can we quickly run through that? Especially, I guess, the conditions.
Sure. Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So we have the fee, which we've already gone over. I think we've already gone over a lot of the site history. And I just have the revised plan dates here. Wait, am I looking at the wrong? Yeah. Well, I think we've gone over a lot of this. I mean, if you want me to just stop on anything and elaborate, let me know. If this comment in red, follow up with try to submit documentation that the units meet 80% removal. That was done. That was what we've been talking about initially at the beginning of this topic. Landscape plan. So one of the changes from the previous approval to this application is that they've added some landscaping along wetland edges, which is beneficial to the wetland areas for numerous reasons. So just called out those plantings. They're going to need planning and zoning approval. WPCA approval. I don't always necessarily specifically call that out, but that's pretty much every site as well. And then I think that this comment about pump station access is out of date as well. The commission does have time if they feel they need to continue this. However, if you feel that it's actionable, some conditions for consideration that I've suggested include a pre-construction meeting prior to land clearing with limits marked out by the surveyor, initial erosion control inspection prior to disturbance, pre-planting plan and planting inspection upon completion of planting and final inspection upon completion of all site work. Should the applicant decide to replace the two hydrodynamic separators currently proposed to remain, the proposed revisions for replacement may be reviewed by the duly authorized agent and town engineer, assuming that replacement is located within the approved limits of disturbance and that the structures will remove at least 80% total suspended solids and are sized properly to handle flows. I had that in there before I got that supplemental documentation, and also not knowing what might happen with other reviews down the line. 3, a bond shall be submitted to cover proper installation and maintenance of proposed erosion controls. Basically, the rest of it saying it should be in conformance with Section 13 of the regulations regarding bonds. 4, plantings shown along wetland flags 1 through 5 and 30 through 40 on plan sheet LL1 shall be monitored and reports submitted by end of initial growing season and annually thereafter for 5 years, documenting at least 85% survival. Bond shall be submitted, and that a wetland scientist must approve any alteration to the planting plan. All erosion control matting shall be biodegradable. Upon clearing of site and until the site is stabilized, the applicant shall retain a qualified erosion control professional to inspect the soil erosion and sediment controls and provide written reports weekly and after each measurable precipitation event of 1/4 inch or greater. That aligns with the notes in their plans. The qualified erosion control professional shall be from the engineering firm of record or an approved third party not associated with completing site work. Land surveyors shall identify layout in the field to help make sure everything is built in compliance with the permit. And confirmation that the site grading and stormwater is consistent with the approval. Certification that final cleaning of the stormwater system occurred after completion of construction shall be submitted to the IW agency. As stormwater maintenance is an integral component of the provided stormwater treatment, copies of the stormwater maintenance records as indicated in the stormwater system operation and maintenance plan shall be submitted to the agency on an annual basis to document compliance with the permit. Email submission is okay to reduce paper use. And 10, to ensure uninterrupted maintenance of the system prior to any further division of the parcel or revised stormwater system operation and maintenance plan shall be submitted to clearly document which property owners are responsible for maintenance of all components of the stormwater system. That's left over from, I copied some of the stuff from the permit that's already been issued, because they are looking to split the parcel up into some smaller parcels for the different uses. So just make sure that since the treatment train might span property lines, make sure it's clear who's responsible for what.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, is there a time frame on item 9, or is that, forever?
Yeah, so it is interesting. I think that language might. So, fun fact: this is the one site in town where we actually do get an annual report about stormwater maintenance annually. The way it's written, it doesn't have a sunset date, but it could be revised to say at agency's request. And you could put 5 years, whatever, if you wanted to put an end date on it. Because honestly, if we were to get this every year from every site, it would be overwhelming.
Right.
But we have had this language, but instead of shall be submitted annually, it shall be submitted at request of the agency. So that if there's a question of whether or not they're maintaining it, we can kind of fact check it.
I just assume be consistent.
I think that came from the permit previous to the previous permit application. So. But yeah, I do think you have a good point of consistency and that's not a standard requirement that we typically have.
Commissioner Bassman, does any commissioner want to add or amend any of the conditions for consideration on this application? Hearing none, is there a motion being considered for
This is Commissioner Ormrod. I'll make a motion on this application. IW 240602 329, aka 325 East Main Street, mixed use commercial and residential development. But we approved the application. Pulling up this, excuse me, I need to pull up the staff report. With the possible conditions for consideration 1 through 10, as well as the standard conditions and general provisions in the issuance of all permits, as stated in the staff report, with the date revised July 23rd, 2024.
This is Commissioner Boda. I will second that.
any further discussion? Okay, Commissioner Amrod,
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Two. Inland Wetland 240701, 34 Howard Avenue, retaining wall, front walk, parking area, and landscaping. Material was included in our package. Any introductory comments, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So revised plans have been submitted since the mailing of materials out to commissioners. The plans are in the Dropbox. Some initial comments were provided regarding the initial plans that were sent out to commissioners. Excuse me. And I know that the engineering department wants to review the plans, but the town engineer is out of the office, so we will not have that review for right now. This application, statutorily time-wise, is actionable, however, can also be continued. I think that there's potentially some questions the commission is going to have, but I think I'll hand it over to the applicant to go over the project.
Great. Who's going to represent the applicant this evening?
Hi, I will. My name is Marcy Paluzzi. I'm a landscape architect assisting the Norries on their landscape plan. Is it possible to share my screen?
It is.
I'm not sure I know how to do this, but let me. Oh, did I miss something? Oh, here it is. Okay. I have a lot of. Okay, let's see. I have a couple things. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm manipulating from my screen or from the. Okay, so you can see me scrolling. I was just trying to make my, okay, here we go. Make my window bigger. So the Norries, live at 34 Howard Avenue, as you are familiar with. The project is addressing only the areas in the front. This is part of the survey. I show in a red line where the upland review line is. That's 25 feet. There's an intermittent stream off the property, which is why we're here, even though I don't have the wetland flagging. There's clearly some watercourse wetland review, but this lower line is the 50-foot line, and this second red line is the 100-foot upland review line. This project seeks to really just clean up the front, which I'll start from the planting plan. There's very little room to park the cars. Sophia parks here so that she can utilize the electric plug-in. Stephen is left to park here on the exposed lawn. There's no clear curb cuts. So as part of this application, we'd like to create a clear division of parking, asphalt areas, front walk, lawn, and planting. There is quite a bit of overburning coming from the driveway installation on this side of the property that has spread over. So we've created a small 2.5 to 3 foot retaining wall here to allow it to be evened out and put in a row of arborvitae and some lower blue star junipers to climb over the edge of the wall that would likely step down with the grade here. And then along the foundation, some plantings and a possible secondary lower wall just to create a clean front to really screen off the 18 inches of exposed foundation here. And then similarly, a hydrangea, crenata, and some lower plants to just have some simple plantings on the front here. From a grading perspective, actually, maybe I can skip over here. So this is the view looking up the street of the Norris house, the driveway, this area where we would be cleaning that up and putting the arborvitae. It slopes quite a bit. It's a little difficult to see, but you can tell by the rise of the driveway as compared to the area here. There's that's where the electric car is. This is along the side looking back of that exposed wall that we may create a small wall here, but as you can see, and then that's what's left for parking for the truck, and I'm parked right behind it. And this is looking from the back of the house at the condition where the air conditioner is and the pad. Let me see, I need to go the other way. And then that's a close-up of the pad with the drainage outfall coming down and draining forward. And then that's looking down that slope that's just overgrown at this point. It's got some, raspberries, and there may be one plant of merit, but I've got to determine where it is relative to the property line once that's cleaned up a bit. And there's, it's untenable as far as it was never a cleaned up slope for them, but we'd be seeking to do a cleaner line there. And I think that's about it. So from a grading perspective, I'm sorry that this is doing this. I don't know why this is. Okay. From a grading perspective, this air conditioned unit, the survey labels it at 39. It's not clear to me whether that 39 is at the bottom of that concrete pad that I showed you or above, but obviously we wouldn't be grading above that. We may need to add a hay bale there, but as we clean up the soil, but I don't envision any water or sediments going towards the wetlands in any fashion. All the drainage is coming forward. I've left 4 feet from the property line to propose this low wall to then do that planting. Working from the grades on the survey, it would, we would be seeking to try to make the driveway a little flatter. It's now at like an 8% grade to make it a little bit flatter, which is part of the reason for needing this wall, but also to just make this a more level area, not bringing water onto their property, and to give them some topsoil and really material for planting because the ledge is so close to the surface. So I don't know, based on having not done any test pits, where we're going to hit ledge in here and how low we can get that. But the idea was that you would have a walkway with some stairs and a curb a lawn area, and then if needed, we could add the second lower wall. All of the walls, if I can go to this is a detail of the wall. Sorry, my mouse isn't cooperating, which essentially, it shows a 3 foot maximum, but I think I'm really at about 2.5. The existing grade is coming along here. It's hard to say whether it's 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 based on the contours, because the contours aren't quite finished. But it feels like it's a little bit more than 2 to 1, that it's not as level as 3 to 1, and it's closer to a 2 to 1, which isn't consistent with grading regulations. So that was part of the basis for wanting to add the wall, and then just wanting to show that there's a drainage behind the wall. We would definitely add material to absorb and store water, as far as stone behind the wall, and then some geo pads to give stability, even though it's a very low wall. We don't anticipate any overturning on the wall. And then it gives a 1.5 foot below grade. That may not be possible. We may have to pin that wall on there onto ledge, and I just won't know that until we get into the construction. I think. And then as far as tying in, there is one roof leader here that we would anticipate tying into the PVC pipe behind the wall and continuing to outflow it towards the street, adding some, larger 2 to 3 inch stone at the end here to, separate any of the water that's daylighting. And there's really no retention now happening, so there's going to be no change. I don't have a calculation on that, and I did speak to Rob Sonicson, who's away, who can speak further on this, but he said to just make sure to note that all the water that's there now is draining forward to Howard Avenue and would continue to drain forward as a result of these improvements. Are there any questions I can help you with?
Mr. Bassett, what's the date of the plan that I'm looking at here?
The date of the plan?
Yeah.
I just updated the last few elevations today based on the field visit up and around this area. But this same concept with the wall was submitted, and then based on staff reports I showed, I added the detail and I added the drainage and the splash pad behind the wall. But I wanted to firm up the grading, which I did, and I found that I was a little bit ambitious with the height on the wall and was able to lower it as well. But a lot of this wall is affected by the grades of this driveway and the overburden. That's you're at 41 here, which we would really remove, and I would take the 41 into the wall, and if we have to retain here because of this situation, is uncertain at this point, we would do that. But obviously we need to bring the water this way as opposed to across the front of the house.
This is Commissioner Rassman. Jamie, the material that was mailed out is dated August of 23. Is the Dropbox material more recent?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. Yes, the Dropbox material is more recent. However, I think you're looking at the top 2 pages, I believe, are surveys. And then I'm not sure how many pages were included in the first submission. So at least the top page is a survey. If you flip back to the proposed plans, there'll be a different date on it. But it is different from the materials that we're looking at on the screen right now. And the materials we're looking at right now are in the Dropbox. Although I will call out real quick, Marcy, if you can submit the photos that you shared this evening for the file, that would be great.
This is Commissioner Bassman.
Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchette. There was actually 3 plans that were sent out to you all. There was a survey without grading, there was a survey with grading, and then there was the plan.
And then this is a 4th one?
So this main set split out based on comments, the layout from the grading, from the planting to make it a little bit more readable. The information that I discussed tonight around the wall grading is really what's changed since then.
It is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, have you had an opportunity to review this, especially in terms of the water flow?
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I think my two biggest concerns, which have been touched on this evening, but are that the wetland area to the rear is protected from any regrading activities. So the revised plan that was submitted this afternoon does add the call out grade smoothly and evenly to bottom of air conditioned pad. Install hay bale to prevent any sediment from eroding towards the back of the house. I don't think there's any details or anything. And then one other concern I had was about drainage. And I think it would be good to get comments from the engineering department, just because, especially now that the downspout is tying into the drainage and being discharged close to the street edge. I'm not sure if they're going to have any concerns about that. If they do, I think the commission might want to see how the stormwater is being managed, given the tightness of the site and the steep slope going back to the wetland. I believe the drainage from Howard Ave ties into a system that goes to Long Island Sound, so that's not really within the purview of the Inland Wetlands Commission. I would be concerned with any potential impact going towards the rear of the property. But again, not knowing if things are going to change. I don't know.
Commissioner Basserman, I guess I'm not comfortable in looking at what I've seen so far in making a decision on this application at this point. I think some review by staff, town engineer, and then having an opportunity, I guess, since information was submitted today, to review all that, seems to me it's ripe for a discussion at our next meeting. One man's opinion.
This is Commissioner Boda. I agree.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Ormerod, and it might help the applicant out, but yeah, it's kind of hard looking at the plan. Yeah, some of the spot grading, it looks like there's, yeah, it kind of peaks in the midpoint of the property, and it slopes towards the back and slopes towards the front. So it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like everything is pitched towards the street, and there's really no, I don't know, there may be some potential for any of the regrading or construction to possibly flow towards the back, but if that can be clarified in I don't know, photos or like you have here, you have some description right on the plan, that would be helpful for me.
Any other guidance on this application from the commission? Okay, I suggest that we just move this item until the next meeting, which is August 22nd, I believe. We don't need a vote on that, do we, Jamie?
No, you can just continue it. Just before we do so, does the applicant have any questions for the commission based on the comments that were provided?
It's Marcy Paluzzi. Just to clarify, this is the third generation, so I made a submission. Staff gave me comments. I responded to them, and then since the staff comments, I was made aware of, she suggested I look at that corner a little more closely, which, obviously came close to the meeting and wanted to be as responsive as possible. So you were getting the current plan. I did understand that the engineer hadn't looked at the plan, so I didn't anticipate a decision to be made tonight, but I did want to try to introduce the project to you tonight with as much accurate detail as I could. So I apologize if you feel like you are looking at information late in the game, but hopefully now that it's all submitted in the Dropbox, you can take your time and review it until the next meeting, and I appreciate your reviews.
Great, look forward to it.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yep. All right, we're now into the enforcement area on our agenda. Cease and correct 240701, 15 and 7 Beacon Hill Road. We're going to table this until the August 22nd meeting so that there will be no discussion this evening. Cease and correct 24. I'm sorry?
Sorry. Correct.
Cease and correct 240501, 90 Red Hill Road, vegetation removal, show cause hearing. And Jamie, I'm going to turn that one over to you because it needs a status update.
So I'm going to keep this relatively short. The recipient of the order was not able to attend this evening. However, I did meet with him on site yesterday to view the cleanup work. So quick reminder, there was some tree removal and a lot of the tree material was left in a piled up state. So the removal of woody debris that was piled up has occurred, and the recipient of the order is working with Van Wilgens, I believe, to come up with a planting plan, which can be implemented this fall. So communication has been good. He's been doing the things that have been asked. So I think my recommendation, given that the parties aren't present this evening and that they are working, and the order required that they submit a planting plan for review by the inland wetland agent, unless there's any concerns that come up that I can't address with the parties involved, tabling this to the October 24th meeting when hopefully the plantings have been installed, and I can update you on that, and we can go from there.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, with the show cause, did we have no timing concerns?
No.
Okay.
No. But because it is a show cause, we do have to continue it to a date that we can notice everyone about. So we can't just table it until we're ready to pick it up necessarily. So I do think October 24th makes sense. And of course, if the parties want to talk with you sooner and there's a reason to do so, we can schedule that. So.
Okay.
Anyone feel differently?
Anybody want to suggest a different date than October 24th? No. Okay.
Okay.
21 Brainerd Road. Initial notice, municipal citation pending.
Okay, so
this
Jamie
Frederick, that keeps coming along, doesn't it?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I threw this on the agenda because at a previous meeting, the commission directed that I should start a municipal citation process for the activities outlined in the cease and correct order CC number 230901. And as part of that process, I sent an initial notice, and there's certain items that the recipient has to do to avoid fines. And so I required an erosion control inspection and attendance at this meeting. I've not done an erosion control inspection, and I don't believe we have anyone present. Do we have anyone present for this item this evening? I see one name I don't recognize. So essentially, I would now take the next step of the citation process. And both of the cease and correct orders have already been filed on the land records. I put those on here in case somebody did show up so that we could talk about everything, but it doesn't appear that anyone is present. So that's all I have unless commissioners have questions.
And just to clarify, that next step would be?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. So I send another letter, telling them of the citation, that they've not met the standards and that they are being issued a citation, and then they have a period of time where they can request a hearing to demonstrate why the citation shouldn't be effective. That's with the citation officer. That's outside of the Inland Wetland Commission's meeting process, so that's not something that you guys have to worry about. That would be something that I would attend as the person that issued the citation.
Enough said. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, 5, 6, and 7, we have nothing really to discuss. And just a notice that we don't have a meeting August 8th, and we're meeting around the same time in August. Any other business, folks? All right, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Bingo.
Second
Good
that.
night. Thank you.
Night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.